Star Wars 7x7, episode 1841. San Diego Comic-Con's first day is in the books, and I'm not there, but I have been keeping track of what's been going on with the reveals, and we're going to talk about day one today. Let's go. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode where, as I mentioned at the top, I am not at San Diego Comic-Con. I am here in the recording studio in New Hampshire, but there are a ton of people who are at San Diego Comic-Con and who are tweeting their faces off about the things that are happening there. And in particular for this episode, I want to give a shout out and a hat tip to Jonna Marie Macias, who is responsible for the Wookiee Gunner website and is also a co-host of the Geeky Bubbles podcast about various Star Wars animated stuff, and also the Star Scavengers podcast about Lego Star Wars stuff. So thank you very much, Jonna Marie, and also everybody else who is sharing wonderful content from San Diego Comic-Con. All of us who are not able to be there are extremely grateful for what you're doing and what you're sharing with all of us. So thank you very much. The big thing I think that is on most folks' minds as far as the Rise of Skywalker goes is the Sith Trooper, okay? So they don't have a panel about the Rise of Skywalker, but they do have this giant Stormtrooper display, and it turns out that they've got a video running that's talking about the history of Stormtrooper design and development, which is very cool, and Jonna Marie Macias was kind enough to post multiple Twitter videos that capture the video presentation that's running. It's very cool. It also includes clone development too, and interviews with Dave Filoni and Doug Chiang and J.J. Abrams, so just to name a few. But as far as the Sith Trooper thing goes, if you remember previous costume displays that Lucasfilm has done, whether it was the Force Awakens display at not San Diego, but at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim, all the way up to Rogue One and The Last Jedi, all of these displays generally have little placards that talk about the things that are being displayed. And that is the case with 8 of the 9 trooper costumes that are on display at San Diego Comic-Con. The one exception, surprise, surprise, is the Sith Trooper costume, which is on display, but with no explanatory plaque, so no additional information. They do have a couple of folks walking around in Sith Trooper uniforms, but I don't gather from what I've seen online so far that it's a Galaxy's Edge situation, if you will. In other words, they're not people that you can talk to and get additional information out of or anything like that. So, it's probably worth a try, but unfortunately it doesn't seem like it's working out that way. What I can tell you, though, is that there are 2 little bits of information that are included in the video presentation that's running on a loop behind the Stormtrooper costumes related to the Sith Trooper. Aside from J.J. Abrams saying, I think this is going to be great and you're going to be amazed at seeing it and all that stuff, the things that are new and, take them for what you will, they're interesting information pieces, but as to whether they really tell us anything, well, maybe. It depends on how deeply you want to interpret these things. First of all, there is a bit of Arabesh writing where it says Sith Trooper, and it translates as elite unit. So yeah, that's probably not really a surprise. A Sith Trooper being part of an elite Stormtrooper unit, well, I should certainly hope that they would be considered elite as far as these things go. And then the other thing about this particular video presentation has to do with the allegiance of the Sith Trooper. It wasn't exactly clear when Lucasfilm made the initial announcement about the Sith Trooper. They talked about it being the evolution of Imperial/First Order Stormtrooper design, but that didn't necessarily mean that the Sith Trooper was a First Order Stormtrooper. And if you scroll down through, look at all the toys and other collectibles that they were going to offer at San Diego Comic-Con related to the Sith Trooper, there's an emblem on one of them, on the one that comes from Hot Toys, I believe it was, where it's not a First Order emblem, it's not the Sith emblem, it's just another emblem entirely. And then if you go all the way down to the bottom of the post on their news section, there's a bookmark that's being offered, and that had a first order emblem on it. So that was the first indication that, yes, they would be a part of the first order. And this video presentation that's happening at San Diego Comic-Con, that confirms, and yeah, I'm being very careful about my use of that word, but that confirms that the Sith Trooper is actually an elite unit within the First Order specifically. Yeah, still lots to learn, to be sure. But it seems like we're not going to learn it at San Diego Comic-Con. We're going to have to wait a little bit longer. And we're also going to have to wait a little bit longer, like a few years, for the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art to open. But there was an initial panel about it at San Diego Comic-Con, and I'll share a couple of highlights with you about that after the break. Stay tuned. This episode is brought to you by Constant Contact, the premier email marketing solution for small businesses and organizations. I've used their service since 2003, and over the past decade and a half, I've watched them evolve, make the product simpler, more powerful, easy to use, and do everything that they can to help train people to use the product more effectively and for it to work with other forms of marketing like social media, for example. So check out sw7x7.com/email to learn more about Constant Contact and start a free trial. Once again, that is sw7x7.com/email for a free trial. Welcome back. So for the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art presentation, I want to give a shout out to Annalise Ophelian, who is the director of the Looking for Leia documentary, who, in addition to John Marie Macias, also posted some wonderful photos from the Lucas Museum panel on her Twitter account. That's Dr_Ophelian. And John Marie is Blue Jag Eyes, Jaigeeyes. My apologies on the pronunciation, if needed. Anyway, the Lucas Museum, they announced that it's going to be broken up into 6 collections, including world art before 1950, American art, cinema, photography, comic art, and children's book illustrations. Yeah, I think that's all 6. The cinema one is the one that particularly applies to the stuff for which we have fallen in love with George Lucas, especially in terms of this podcast, at least. And there will be things included from the Star Wars and Indiana Jones franchises that have never seen the light of day until now. And also, I think probably one of the funniest things I read was the fact that they showed a slide during the presentation revealing that the Ark of the Covenant will be included in the collection, and Annalise said that she deserves bonus points for not shouting out, "Don't look at it, Marion!" when it showed up on the presentation, and I 100% agree. You absolutely deserve bonus points for that, Annalise. So great job, and well done, and thank you so much for sharing all the wonderful images, and John Marie as well, and everybody else who is tweeting and Instagramming and doing all sorts of cool things at San Diego Comic-Con for the benefit of all of us who cannot be there. Yeah, good stuff. But the other thing to note about the Lucas Museum stuff is that it is from the beginning of the franchise workings up until its sale to Disney in 2012. So if you're going to be looking for sequel era stuff at the Lucas Museum for Narrative Art, at least, for the start of things, it's not going to be there. So yeah, just the original and the prequel trilogies. And that's okay, the new stuff, well, it's still kind of new. I don't know if it's museum ready yet. It might need a decade or so to be ready for a museum. So, yeah, I don't think Indiana Jones is going to be standing around going, "This belongs in a museum," for another few years at least, but be that as it may, that is going to do it for our look at the first day of San Diego Comic-Con. Tomorrow's episode of the show, we'll be looking at all the stuff from Friday's reveals, and that's probably going to be quite a lot, so who knows how we're going to deal with that. We might end up having multiple episodes depending on how big the news gets, but we'll play that by ear. For now, though, it just remains for me to say thank you so much once again for joining me for this episode, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox. It is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other related Star Wars items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2019 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.